If you watch the news occasionally, then you'll know what some of these horrific acts are. Or if you're interested in history, you'll recognise what they are. Do you recognise what some of these are? Yeah, what's that, sir? Any ideas? The Holocaust. Yeah, the Holocaust. What have we got here? We've got the Tiananmen Square massacre of lots of students in China when they stood up to the governmental regime there. What have we got here? We've got a bomb that went off in a petrol station. Well, it wasn't a bomb, actually. It was just an explosion that happened accidentally, blowing up that petrol station, killing 10 people. And then here we've got the Twin Towers that killed 2,500 people. So you recognise all these terrible acts and terrible disasters that happened that caused the loss of life. And you may say, right, if there's a God, why didn't he stop these things? Because, you know, that's the number one question I get asked. Loads of people always say to me, you know, the reason I don't believe in God is because of all the suffering in the world. 50% of people, that's the reason they don't believe in God, because of all the suffering. So if you're one of that 50%, if you listen to me now, then hopefully, by the end of it, you won't be one of those people who doesn't believe in God because of all the suffering. You'll actually realise that that is not a reason to disbelieve in God. But yeah, why does God allow suffering? That's the question I'm asking. Now, the thing is this. If you can recognise what suffering is, if you can recognise that these incidents that happened are evil, then that actually proves God. See, the presence of evil proves God. Now, how can that be? I'll tell you why that can be. How do you know that these things are evil? You know, we just had Charlie Kirk get shot by someone in America, and he's dead, living behind his kids and his wife, and he was only 31 years old. You know, we can all recognise that as being a horrific act. But, you know, the animals don't understand morality. You see animals killing each other left, right and centre, and they're just wild, and we just take that for granted. But, you see, we are not an evolution of any animal species. We're not we're not come from the ape population, you know. We are made differently. We are made in the image of God, which means that we have something that the animals don't, that the apes don't, that the chimpanzees don't have. We have the knowledge of right and wrong. We understand the difference between good and evil. Okay? So, where does that understanding of good and evil come from? It comes from God. So the very fact that we can recognize these acts as evil proves there's a God, because we get this understanding of right and wrong from him. Okay? So that's the first thing to notice about suffering. But it's not enough, is it? Because a lot of people will still be like, look, why doesn't God stop the suffering then? If God is real, why does he stop all the suffering? Well, let me just say to you, you've just heard the clock chiming there. It's just chimed for 1 o'clock. Yeah? Now, if 1 minute past 1, in 1 minute's time, if God stopped all the suffering in 1 minute time, what would the world look like? Shall I tell you what it would look like? Well, it'd go a lot quieter for one. You won't have me street preaching before your very eyes. I would disappear in a puff of smoke. Yeah? Now, why would I disappear if God stopped all the suffering right now? I'll tell you why I would disappear. Because I have caused suffering. So if God's going to stop all the suffering in the world right now, then I have to disappear. So I can't cause any more suffering. Yeah? And some of you are probably thinking, I wish you would disappear. You're spoiling my lunchtime. I want to have me pasta in peace. Me chip balm in peace. I want to have me pie in peace. From Greg's just over the road there. Or the Pound Bakery. But the thing is this. Yeah, I would disappear. But you know who else would disappear? You would disappear as well. That's true, isn't it? If God stopped all the suffering in the world right now, you would disappear as well, because you have also caused suffering. Now, friends, he doesn't do that because he wants us to have the freedom of choice, to carry on living and carry on making decisions. And yes, to make some bad decisions, some of these acts were committed by terrorism. And God allowed it to happen. But he didn't take away the freedom of choice of Hitler to do what he did, or the people behind 9/11 to do what they did, or the Chinese government to kill those Chinese students in Tiananmen Square. He allowed that to take place. Why? Because God respects people's freedom of choice. Now, he could just make us all like robots, couldn't he? So that we all do the right thing. So that we all know he's real. And so that we all serve him. But you know, that would not be love. Because love only comes if there's a freedom of choice. If there's the ability to choose between right and wrong, and you choose good and you choose to follow God, then guess what? You've shown your love for God by following him. And that's how it works. So that's why God allows suffering in the world. But shall I tell you something else which might surprise you? Okay, I am actually glad that God allows suffering. Whoa, you say, Paul, that's a bit of a bold statement. I'm not sure I agree with that. Let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I'm glad that God allows suffering. Because if God did not allow suffering, he wouldn't have allowed his own son to suffer and die on a cross. And it's through Jesus' suffering and dying on a cross that bought my salvation. You see, when he died on that cross, he paid for all the sins that I've done. And he paid for all the sins that you've done. And all we have to do to be forgiven is to come to God and say, thank you for dying on the cross for me. Please forgive me. And we get washed clean on the inside because Jesus' blood cleanses us from all unrighteousness. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Okay? So we have to come to him. We have to acknowledge that, yes, there's evil in the world, but that doesn't explain away God. It actually proves that he's real because we can recognize evil. We can recognize right and wrong, and that morality comes down from on high from God. Think about it. Things like morality, things like love, these are untangible things that we can't just grasp, that we can't just get, that don't come about if we're just an explosion of atoms. Yeah? If you just evolve from a pool of slime, where does love come from? Where does the sense of morality come from if we're just a bunch of chemicals in a primordial soup? You see, these things prove that there's a God. But he's not just a distant God. As much as it looks like he's distant when we see the suffering in the world and God doesn't take care of it, we've got to recognize that he suffered more than anybody on the cross when he had all the mental torture and pain of everyone's sins being placed upon him. He knows what it's like to suffer. He's not a stranger to our suffering. He's right there in it with us. But you know, he has got rid of the problem of suffering. He has. Because he's created a way for us to escape the ultimate place of suffering, and that is hell. You see, Jesus went through hell for us so that we can go to heaven and be with him. So he has got rid of the problem of suffering through his death on the cross by making a way for us to live again in the afterlife, in heaven, eternally. Will there be no more sorrow? Will there be no more tears? Will there be no more pain or suffering? So God has done that for us. And he is the way to get there, to get to that place where there is no more suffering. I wonder, will you come to him today? Will you recognize that you've done things wrong, that you've caused suffering, and that you need to be forgiven? And will you come to him today and say, please, Jesus, forgive me of the wrong things I've done, and come to live in my heart so that I can go to be with you one day, and so I can bless people as much as I can while I'm down here on earth in the meantime, to alleviate their suffering, to show them that there's a way out of suffering, and to show them that one day suffering will be no more. Thank you for listening.